Welcome to Apologetics and Prophecy, the official podcast of Calvary Solid Ground, a remnant church in Orangevale, California. I am Pastor Jed, and I will be your host as we bring you Bible studies and updates put through an apologetical and biblical lens to see just how close we are to the return of our Lord. Thank you for joining us today. All right, out there, everyone. So glad that you could join us for this Friday edition of Apologetics and Prophecy, where we're going to take the time to look into the news today. But before we do that, we want to give you just a quick update of a special event that we have coming up at the church that I pastor. And that is on June 12th. We're going to have Patrick Wood. If you're not familiar with him, he's been on Tom Hughes. He's got a couple great websites. And so if you're in the area and you want to come and join us in person, you can. That's Wednesday, June 12th at 6:30 p.m. That's our normal Bible study day. And it will also be available on our website and YouTube channel and all that. But we're welcoming him. We'd love to have you come out and join us. And so please consider coming out and seeing Patrick Wood with us. And he would be glad to see you too. And we're so thankful that we can do these things. But without any further ado, we're going to jump right into it. This week, we're going to be looking at prophecy in the news. And this is a prophecy update that we do weekly. But before we jump into the stories, I just want to remind us why we do these things, because it's important to know why. Why, I'm not just a news reporter. If I wanted to be a news reporter, I go work for a TV station. But I am a watchman on the wall. I am a pastor who is warning people of what's coming, and that's what we do. And there's scriptures that kind of confirm that here. The first one we're looking at is in 2 Chronicles 2:12-32, and I like the New Living Translation for this one. It says, "From the tribe of Issachar, there were 200 leaders of that tribe with their relatives. All these men understood the signs of the times and knew the best course for Israel to take." That is a great translation of what's said about the sons of Issachar. And that's what we like to think that's what we're doing here at Apologetics and Prophecy. And of course, Ezekiel tells us about the watchman and what we're supposed to be doing. And it says in chapter 33, verse 6, "But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at the watchman's hand." We're required to be watchmen, to warn people of the wrath that is coming, the tribulation period that is coming, that the church age is coming to an end. The signs in the news are there, and you need to be warned. If you are not right with Jesus Christ, this is a form of evangelism. This is not just a news story. We're blowing the trumpet. We see the cloud coming. We can see the setup beginning. So that's one of the reasons why we do this. We're just obeying Scripture. And then I like this one from Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 17. "Also I set watchmen over you, saying, listen to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not listen." Why do so many churches not teach prophecy? Because their congregations don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear about God's wrath coming. They don't want to hear about the Lord coming about at any moment. They are happy with their lives. They want to build their kingdoms here on earth. It appeals to their flesh to tell them, oh, we got plenty of time. Oh, that false teaching of that, that tribulation stuff is false teaching. No, but the Bible's very clear that we are watchmen, and we're blowing the trumpet saying God's wrath is coming. And if you're not listening, you are at danger of being thrust into a time period that is unlike any since the flood of Noah's day. And you do not want to be here for that day. So jumping right into some of our stories today, and of course, the first one is no stranger. We talked a lot about this last time, and that is Jewish children savagely beaten by man in New York City attack. The anti-Semitism is getting worse and worse. And this is pretty sick. I mean, when it comes now that children are being beaten up just because they're Jewish, and like I said last time, America's two-faced friend, where is the leaders crying out against this? Footage shows a man dismounting from his bicycle and approaching a group of Orthodox Jewish children who are playing on the sidewalk. Jewish children were beaten by an unidentified man in New York on Sunday night, according to local media. Disturbing video footage showing the perpetrator assaulting and beating kids on Franklin Avenue on Sunday night. The assailant appeared to smack one of the children on the face, kicking him to the ground, and the man threw another child to the ground before repeatedly kicking him. The children fled, and the man returned to his bicycle. And of course, nothing said. You don't hear this on the mainstream media. This was Jerusalem Post, but they're pretty liberal. But still, here's a video though that really shows us how bad it is getting. So go ahead and pay attention to this one. It's just insane that we have to see these things. And, and it takes some innocent, a bystander on his cell phone to tell us the news that if you're Jewish, you're getting beat up. You're being, the cry for your genocide is happening all over the place. And then, of course, what do we see here? This story right here. It says, leave immediately. University issues warning to campus as hundreds of anti-Israel agitators clash with police. See, they are going to get violent. These are not peaceful protesters. These are violent protesters. And it says, after hundreds of anti-Israel protesters swarmed campus buildings and set up barricades at the University of California, Irvine, local law enforcement agencies responded and students were ordered to leave immediately on Wednesday. And of course, they set up barricades and they're not leaving without violence. And it's just crazy. And then, of course, do we see this anti-Semitic behavior, this cry for the genocide of Jewish people intensifying even here in the United States? Well, here, this article will tell us all about the supposed religion of peace, Islam. This one, Miami Imam sermon prays, "O Allah, annihilate the Jews, the brothers of apes and pigs." These are the people that the college students are supporting on, in their protest. People that are calling for the destruction of a race. These people are racist. They're evil people, and yet these college kids do not understand what they are saying. It says in his April 26, 2024 Friday sermon at Masjid al-Sunnah on Nabari, North Miami, Florida, Imam Dr. Fadi Kablawi accused the Israeli military of organ trafficking. He said that they are worse than Nazis, and he alleged that Israel is stealing the skin and organs of Palestinians. He suggested go and find who is behind organ trading in this country or this world. He repeated a conspiracy theory according to which Israel medical and rescue teams that came to Haiti following the 2010 earthquake engaged in organ theft. That's not at all that happened. He concluded his sermon by praying that Allah annihilates the tyrannical Jews, the brothers of apes and pigs. The sermon was streamed live on the Facebook page of the mosque. Now, notice how Facebook doesn't mind if you share that. But if we get out there and question the vaccine or January 6th, oh, you're cut off. You're canceled. But if you're talking about the annihilation of a whole people group, I guess that's okay. It shows you how crazy this world has gotten. And we're telling you, God's wrath is coming. The tribulation period is coming. We are watchmen. These stories are just telling you to be ready. If you're building your kingdom here on earth, if you think you've got another tomorrow, you better think again, because a lot of these stories are telling us more and more. Now, this story is insane. This one here, FBI and DHS issue warning on foreign terrorist group for June. Now, they won't close our borders. They won't deal with the immigration problems, so they'll just send out a warning. And of course, it's not for Christians or anybody else, just the June Pride events, right? It says the agencies say groups such as ISIS could target Pride Month or related events. The FBI and Department of Homeland Security has issued a public service announcement saying foreign terrorist organizations such as ISIS and related terrorist organizations could target certain events across the United States during Pride Month related events in June. You know, that's funny. It's because, you know, well, what about the Queers for Palestine? Are they going to attack them? You know, it's funny that the same people that are supporting ISIS and Hamas, now they're worried about them turning around and attacking the people that are supporting them. It's just ridiculous. The FBI and the DHS would only do their job and protect our borders like they're supposed to, and they're not. It's a wide open, porous border. They're letting all these terrorists in. They're flying people in from Gaza here to the United States. Then they're here to infiltrate us. And what do? They send out a warning. Oh, watch out for the pride parades. You know, it's just ridiculous, you know. And then this next story I wanted to bring up to you, and it's from Patrick Wood. Patrick Wood has a site called technocracy.news, and I subscribe to his news channel. And he wrote an article about something we mentioned last night, and that is, last time, about the WHO. Remember, the pandemic treaty's coming on in the 27th of May. They're going to vote on this pandemic treaty that the United States is all on board for. But there is already a system put in place that they've been working on for a long time behind the scenes that is here in the United States, and WHO and all of them have integrated that, and it's called One Health. And I want to we mentioned it last time, but we want to kind of talk about it a little bit more and a few stories on that. And that is One Health. It is a cult based on Gaia worship, Wicca, and neo-paganism. Let's explain that right here. And it says, Patrick Wood wrote this article. It says, the First Amendment starts with Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Congress has largely been asleep as forces with the administration have proliferated One Health policies that seek to merge man and the earth into oneness. However, this is an age-old religion associated with paganism, Wiccan, and Gaiaism, and it needs to be called on the carpet for what it is. And it's true. The whole climate change and saving Mother Earth has become a religion because we're looking at we're looking at nature as being an ecosystem that we're responsible for, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it says the Center of Disease Control, CDC, defines One Health as One Health is a collaborative, multi-sectional, and transdisciplinary approach, working at the local, regional, and national and global levels with the goal of achieving optimal health outcomes, recognizing the interconnection between people, animals, plants, and their shared environment. See, we're all one. And that's what this Gaia worship is. And another 19 federal agencies are wrapped into the One Health mantra, having been sucked into the whole of government vortex created under the Clinton administration. Because of the myriad regulations created to enforce it, states, counties, and cities are steeped in it. The pictorial below, and here's the pictorial right here of kind of how they look at it as public health, global health, One Health, and planetary health. It says right here, depicts the minuscule man related to public health, global health, One Health, and finally planetary health. Since the planet is sick, mostly by the actions of man, it needs to be healed, resuscitated, and made whole again. And of course, we've talked about what we see with climate happening today is the after effects of the global flood. The global flood created the only ice age we've ever had. And then as the ice age cooled and everything is starting to warm back up again, we're seeing the gradual effects of that. And so it is not, man-made climate change. It is actually global flood-related climate change. And so we look at it from a biblical standpoint, but they look at it from a humanistic standpoint, and that's why it's become a religion. It says, one occult site explains, this is Gaia and Wiccan and Gaiaism is an earth-centered philosophical, spiritual, holistic, and scientifically rational opinion that shares expressions with various religions, such as earth religions and paganism, while not identifying exclusively with any specific one. Pioneers of Gaianism are called Gaians and sometimes Gaianists. Followers typically approach the philosophy with the perspective that we should honor the earth, reduce and soften the human impact on the earth, and be respectful of all life on earth. The later perspective is extended to all forms of life, such as plant, animal, or human, and followers will often try to maintain a close relationship with the planet. Now, he mentions that the inventor of Gaianism is a guy named James Lovelock, who lived from 1918 to 2022, and he kind of thought it necessary. And then there's the two scholars at the University of Westminster continue the threat of eco-authoritarianism is often linked to the rising tendency towards technocracy, which suggests that decisions should be left to those with relevant scientific and technical expertise. That is implied will speed up decision making and generate more effective green outcomes. This is a new state mandated religion based upon a technocracy foundation. They're going to use climate change and climate control to bring in this dystopian world that they've talked about for many years. For over 100 years, they've been planning this technocracy, right? And it says, since One Health has been crammed down our throats by the government, it is safe to say that a new state-mandated religion has been declared. The final proof is this. Just try to criticize it, especially if you're a Christian, and see where it gets you. And nobody could be right. And if you don't believe me, look at a few of these. This is the WHO. This is from their own website, and it says right here, One Health. That's their website. And it says right here, One Health is an integrated, unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animal, and ecosystems. And it talks about how we're all independent. And the One Health is the full spectrum of disease control, from prevention, preparedness, response, and management. And they're putting all of this into this WHO treaty that they're getting us to all sign. It's all going to be climate related and pandemic related. This will be the way that the WHO can have a climate lockdown. And so, believe it or not, these things are already in the United States. Here's the CDC one that we just talked about right here, where we just quoted that scripture, that top part where it's the approach and recognizes the health of people is closely connected to the health of animals and our shared environment. So we see the CDC. What about the USDA? The USDA that controls all of our food supply, right? Here they are right here. One Health. It says that the health of animals, people, and the environment is connected. The One Health approach is the collaborative effort of the human health, veterinary health, and environmental health communities. Through this collaboration, USDA achieves ultimate health outcomes for both animals and people. So it's on it. It's here, you guys. It's already here. And these things have been in place for a while. And while you're looking at, while the news is getting you focused on Ukraine and Israel, behind the scenes, they're setting up this dystopian technocracy that is going to control us through our health and through the climate. And so we need to hope and pray that they hold off on this treaty, or we deny going into it, or it somehow falls apart before the end of this month. But this is the kind of stuff they're going to be pushing. These are the kind of stories that we're going to continue to see as we get closer to that date. And it's the bird flu, of course. Michigan readies emergency order to manage bird flu outbreak, hurting poultry farmers. So Michigan's already jumping on board. See, emergency authorization. Remember that COVID was a global dry run, and it worked seamlessly and perfectly. People bought in hook, line, and sinker. And so the bird flu, they can just, once they get everything set in place, they can either do a climate lockdown or another pandemic lockdown, bird flu lockdown, and they're going to force all of this stuff on people for control. That's what they want to do. That's why technocracy is what's forming. And it will be the technocracy, we believe, will be the form of government that the Antichrist will use to usher in the beast kingdom. And so this one right here says that starting Wednesday on May 8th, a state emergency order will go into effect in Michigan, and it will in an effort to limit the spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza. while it's not impacting people yet, see, and but they got the fear already instilled in people. HPAI's toll on the state economy, as well as its operations for supplying eggs and meat, has taken a hit. So we can already see that these things are happening. But we have a lot of people that in our camp, we ask ourselves, oh, we'll never let this happen again. People would never go and seek, we'll accept whatever kind of relief or whatever kind of vaccine or whatever kind of thing they put in place. But, they're already running to go try to find a way. The fear of bird flu has already hit the communities, because look at this story here. Raw milk sales skyrocket as idiots believe drinking bird flu will give them immunity. And it actually might, but I don't know. But the point is that it says pasteurization kills H5N1, but raw milk has high concentrations of the virus. Please don't drink raw milk. Sales of raw milk in the U.S. have risen 21% since bird flu was first confirmed in dairy cattle in late March, according to a report from PBS NewsHour, citing new data from research from Nielsen IQ. Why on earth would people drink raw milk at a time when pasteurization has been shown to kill the virus? Because some people believe intentionally being exposed to H5N1 will give them immunity to the disease, which is actually true, by the way. And they want you to see this is a two-edged sword here. It shows how people will run to whatever thing is described to them to help them, but also that this is the way to breathe. Remember with ivermectin, they said the same thing. Oh, it won't help you. It's just for killing worms and horses. So you're not a horse. Don't take it. Well, don't drink the raw milk because you might build your immune system naturally. You have to wait and receive our state-approved treatment. And see, that's where we're seeing things going, right? And really, this is all going to a purpose. This is all going to a purpose because they actually want, we know what happened with the jab. We know that these globalists actually want to depopulate the earth. And if you don't believe me, watch this video from Larry Fink. And you ask me, I mean, they tell you what they're going to do. And you could tell you that these evil Luciferian elites want less people on the earth. They think it's a good thing. And here's proof of that right here.
I could argue in the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations. Okay, that's something that most people never talked about. We always used to think shrinking population is a cause for negative growth. But in my conversations with the leadership of these large developed countries that have xenophobic immigration policies, they don't allow anybody to come in, shrinking unemployment, shrinking demographics, these countries will rapidly develop robotics and AI and technology. And if the promise, I didn't say it's going to happen, but if the promise of all that transforms productivity, which most of us think it will, we'll be able to elevate the standard of living of countries and the standard of living of individuals, even with shrinking populations. And so the paradigm of negative population growth is going to be changing. And the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. And so for those countries that have rising populations, the answer will be education, and so rapidly develop. For those countries that do not have a foundation of rule of law or education, they're going to be left. That's where the divide's going to get more and more extreme. And unfortunately,
so that's it. We don't need people anymore. We can replace them all with machines and save Mother Earth. So they tell you what they're going to do beforehand. And when you try to say that Bill Gates and these people are into depopulation and that the COVID pandemic was all a plan to bring about these things, they tell you you're crazy. But then we listen to what comes out of their own mouth, and they tell you that. And so that's why we see stories like this from Prophecy Newswatch that says demographic winter is coming, fertility rates plummet all over the globe. And it's because that's what they want. And it says fertility rates have fallen way below replacement level throughout the entire industrialized world. And this is starting to cause major problems all over the globe. Aging populations are counting on younger generations to take care of them as they get older, but younger generations are not nearly large enough to accomplish that task. So they don't have enough workers. And so, but they want this to happen. They want depopulation. That's why they love China. They love abortion. They love people dying to make the planet, because they really believe there's too many people on the planet. When God said, be fruitful and multiply, man in rebellion against God says, no, we have too many people. We need to kill some of them off. And so we see all this happening right here. And of course, this should scare us to death too, this next news story that we see happening. And that is OpenAI and Google are launching supercharged AI assistants. Here's how you can try them out. It's just crazy. These things keep getting smarter. It says this week, Google and OpenAI both announced they built supercharged AI assistants, tools that can converse with you in real time and recover when you interrupt them, analyzing your surroundings via live video and translate conversations on the fly. OpenAI struck first on Monday when it debuted its new flagship model GPT-40. The live demonstration showed it reading bedtime stories and helping to solve math problems, all in a voice that sounded like Joaquin Phoenix's AI girlfriend in the movie Her. And then on Tuesday, Google announced its own new tools, introducing a conversational assistant called Gemini Live, which can do many of the same things. It also revealed that it's building a sort of do-everything AI agent, which is currently in development, but will not be released until later this year. And of course, we've already showed the problems of people having relationships with this AI. And this is all part of the globalist elite plan to replace humans with machines, and it's all part of technocracy. And we see these things. And of course, are we expecting any help from the FBI? Of course not. This next story shouldn't surprise us. And that is, thanks a lot, Speaker Johnson. FBI brass just urged agents to use warrantless wiretaps on U.S. citizens. Now, I know that a lot of us out there, we like Mike Johnson. He says he's a Christian. He seems to, at least confess that in many of his things. But he does a lot of things that are more related to the establishment. And the FISA warrant that he went ahead and even when he said he didn't and then he changed his mind. Listen to this. It says the FBI is at it again, going after U.S. citizens with a little help from Speaker Johnson and the rest of Congress, who voted to extend FBI's 702 FISA powers. Now, remember, these are the same powers that they used to illegally tap President Trump and brought down General Flynn and all of these things. But as a matter of fact, about 20 minutes before becoming Speaker, Mike Johnson was against the FBI warrantless wiretaps. But that stance took a quick turn after the feds got him alone in a locked room and really worked him over. And what it says is that this is what Johnson said. And what they did was they got him in a skiff in this secure facility and kind of told him why they needed to keep, warrantless wiretaps on Americans. And it says, when I was a member of the judiciary, I saw all the abuses of the FBI. There were terrible abuses over and over and over, Johnson told reporters in the Capitol on Wednesday evening. And then when I became Speaker, I went to the skiff and got the confidential briefing from sort of the other perspective on that to understand the necessity of Section 702 of FISA and how important it is for national security. And it gave me a different perspective. He continued using the abbreviation for sensitive compartmentalized information facility. That means in secret without your knowing. It's, again, the whole government approach of we know what's best for you, but we can't tell you. And so just trust us. I'm sorry, Michael Johnson. We don't trust you. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the FBI, and we do not like the Department of Homeland Security draconian Patriot Act rules that have taken away our First and Second Amendment rights. So sorry, Guy, and we know that this is all headed to the Antichrist taking full control of all of these things. And so we know what's coming. And then what happens, though, if you speak out against all this? What if you speak out against the establishment? What if Mike Johnson took a stand and went against them? What's going to happen to him? Well, what do you expect to happen? What happened to Steve Bannon is headed to jail as appeals court upholds his conviction for defying the January 6th committee subpoena. All Steve Bannon did was say that he was not going to testify to J6 because he knew it was a witch hunt. He knew it was a farce. And so what did? They hold him in contempt and they charged him. And now they're going to make him go to jail. And it says Donald Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, is likely headed to prison after an appeals court upheld his conviction for contempt of Congress. He was handed a 4-month sentence in 2022 for refusing to give evidence to a congressional investigation into the January 6th attack. It wasn't an attack on the U.S. Capitol, but it was put on hold as he appealed, saying that he acted in good faith by following legal advice and that he was barred from including critical evidence at his trial. And of course, you know, that and then the next story here says that DOJ requests judge orders Steve Bannon begin prison sentence. So the DOJ, which is run by the Biden administration and Merrick Garland, who is a plant for Biden administration, they're telling the judge now what to do. They're telling the judge, hey, you need to throw him in jail. Because even though, you know, Bannon is one of those people that even though he was taken on, he was one of those people who never stabbed Trump in the back. You know, you can say a lot of things about Steve Bannon, but at least he's lived by his conviction all the way through, willing to go to jail for them. And I would say that's a shame. And we'll leave today with a story about that in a minute. But that's just crazy. And then, of course, what about the other side? Oh, well, what if that's all political, Pastor? You know, we're just gonna do Christian stuff. We're not going to get involved in politics. Well, what if you're into an abortion ministry? What if you support one of your local ministries that go and minister to the women that are going in to have an abortion, trying to counsel them into keeping the babies? Then something like this might happen to you. Jailed D.C. pro-lifer Lauren Handy sentenced to 4 years in prison by pro-abortion judge. That's right. They're throwing, you know, if you speak up, if you try to live by your convictions, if you try to live true to your convictions, you might land up being put in jail. And that's what's happening here. It says pro-life advocate Lauren Handy was sentenced to 4 years in prison in the first of Tuesday's sentencing hearings for the peaceful pro-life rescuers convicted last year of blocking access to late-term abortion center in D.C. Pro-life advocate Lauren Handy was sentenced to 4 years in prison and a $125 fine on Tuesday in the first of Tuesday's sentencing hearing for the first batch of pro-lifers convicted last year of blocking access to a late-term abortion facility in the nation's capital. On August 29, 2023, a D.C. jury found Handy, Will Goodman, Heather Idoni, John Hinshaw, and Rosemary Erb Garrightly guilty of violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, FACE Act, and conspiracy against rights. The next month, Joe Andrew Bells, Jonathan Darnell, and Gene Marshall were convicted of the same. Paulette Harlow's conviction came in November. So all these people are being convicted to go just for counseling women, and it's just crazy. And so, but as we're doing these things, what's happening? We can see what's going to come to America when we look in Canada. And of course, this article by Blaze Media that came out, pastors remain silent as Canada perpetuates a mass anti-Christian hate crime. And then this article goes on, many Christian leaders would never say this out loud, but they have largely adopted the left's view of the West and treat the historical dominance of Christian culture as a source of great shame. The Canadian government and media have colluded in a mass anti-Christian hate hoax that resulted in the burning of more than 80 churches. In any other circumstance, this vicious display of religious persecution would be held up as a horrendous violation of human rights. But you will not hear a single word from the many charities and watchdog organizations dedicated to monitoring such abuses. I haven't. Took Blaze Media, run by a Mormon, right, to give us this information. The pogrom against Christian churches was instigated by a wide range of Canadian elites, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, but the event is unlikely to get so much as a mention from pastors in the United States this Sunday. Instead, American congregations are likely to hear lectures about the evils of holding political power and the dangers of Christian nationalism, even as their brothers in Christ watch sacred places of worship burn to the ground with the approval of the secular state. So 80 churches were burned down because what had happened was Justin Trudeau and the government came out and deemed these different churches as being part of the problem, and they had this they were colonialists or whatever, and so all of these people were mad and went and burnt the churches down, and they never did anything to the people that burned the churches down, and nobody said anything. And so that's what this article is saying. But this is happening all over. And as we see what happens if you're a Steve Bannon or if you're this other gal that got arrested for just being a pro-life activist, you're going to go to jail. And it's happening up here in Canada. They're purposely demonizing Christians, and then when people come and attack us or take us out, they don't care. It doesn't make the news. And then, of course, what about this story? Group claims that 8,200 Nigerian Christians killed in 13 months. We don't hear a lot of that. I don't see people marching in the streets for this one. A group is claiming a horrifying high number of Christians killed in Nigeria in just 13 months as the anti-Christian genocide there rages on. The International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law spoke to the Daily Post in April about the murder and displacement of thousands of Christians in Nigeria, where Islamic jihadists are particularly active. In Nigeria, according to Inter-Society Special Report of February 14, 2024, more than 8,200 defenseless Christians were hacked to death in 13 months of January 2023 to January 2024, and over 8,000 abducted, out of which 10% or 800 are not capable of returning to their families alive, the group declared. Inter-Society criticized Christian leadership in their statement, arguing that Christian leaders are hypocrites and fakers who are no longer true defenders of faith. Ultimately, however, the serious threat of extinction posed on Christianity in Nigeria comes from violent and intolerant state actors and non-state actors. As I noted above, this includes Islamic jihadis such as Boko Haram terrorist group, and Christians are not the only victims. In fact, according to Inter-Society, 4,000 victims were neither Christian nor Muslim. Nigeria also recorded over 150,000 religious-related deaths since the July 2009 Boko Haram uprising, involving killing of at least 100,000 defenseless Christians, 46,000 moderate Muslims, Inter-Society detailed. Direct killings are accounted for not less than 100,000 deaths, and indirect killings, including deaths arising from state actors and non-state custodial torture and shooting or hacking, took the remaining 50,000 deaths. And so remember, we talked about this a while back ago with one of these stories. I think it was the beginning of 2023. And I said the only difference between, Nigeria and the United States, the only thing missing between the two is machetes. They're hacking them to death there. All we need to do is put machetes in the protesters' hands here, and they'll hack a Jew to death and they'll hack a Christian to death. They have no problem. It's the heart of man that's the problem. And that's what Jesus tells us. But what is our leaders doing? As Ukraine is burning on fire and hundreds of thousands of people are dying on both sides of the war, when we should be seeking diplomacy and a way to get both sides to stop fighting the war. When we see the world and all these things happening, what's our State Department doing? Oh, they're just going and having a good time. Blinken rocks out in Kiev while war rages. It just shows you how crazy this world is. It says U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken made a visit to Ukraine today, less than 3 weeks after President Biden signed a bill sending $61 billion in military aid to Ukraine. During his trip, Blinken performed with the band Barman Dictate, a cocktail bar and music venue in Kyiv. Blinken played guitar and sang Neil Young's song "Rocking in the Free World." So while he's out partying and just living it up and playing music, you know, kind of like when Nero was playing the fiddle as Rome burned, is basically what's going on. It shows you that they don't really care. They could care less about you. They could care less about what's happening in the world. They could care less about the hundreds of thousands of people that are dying in war. That there needs to be diplomacy. I don't always think diplomacy is the right thing, but in this case, getting Russia to stop killing Ukrainians would be a great idea, even if it meant losing some territory. But they don't want to. They don't want to think that way. The war machine feeds the economy, and so might as well party on, right? That's what they're doing. And then what's going on with the Pope? This next story shouldn't surprise us. It's pretty crazy. Pope to hold press conference on aliens and the supernatural, and people are confused. It shows you how crazy, that because when you've gotten away from God, you'll accept anything. And of course, we know that the Vatican has been pumping out doctrines of demons for many years. So it shouldn't surprise us that they're going to make a deal with demons when they show up on the scene, right? Pope, the last time the Vatican held a press conference about aliens and supernatural phenomena, it was in February 1978. But what would tomorrow's event mean for the Pope? The Vatican has announced that it's set to hold a press conference on supernatural phenomena tomorrow, and it would have already happened by now, and it will touch on aliens and how it will deal with the potential encounters in the future. They want to be able to baptize aliens. They want to bring them here. They know that they'll believe them when they say that we're your benefactors, and it's all a lie because they come as angels of light. We know they're just demons. And yet the Vatican wants to play around with these things instead of rebuking them like he should in the name of Christ. And then this is we got a couple more stories today. This is the biggest no-brainer of the week, and we kind of known that. And that 6-foot social distancing rule during COVID, not based on scientific evidence, ex-NIH director testifies. So, thank goodness that the House is actually getting the truth out here. And it says, in an interview, Dr. Collins was asked about a range of issues, including the hypothesis that the COVID-19 pandemic was a result of a lab leak. Now, listen to this. When asked Dr. Fauci where the 6 feet came from, and he said it kind of just appeared in the quote, the majority counsel on the committee told Dr. Collins, per the transcript of the interview, "Do you recall science or evidence that supported the 6 feet distance?" And Dr. Collins replied, "I do not." So they just made it up. They just made it up as a dry run for the globalists to see if they could really get people to follow the experts. And they did. Hook, line, and sinker on a global effort. People still try to keep 6 feet. People are still wearing masks. How idiotic is that? They've been lied to. It's all been made up. And the truth comes out, and what do? They continue to comply. And so that's kind of the story I want to leave off with you today. That sometimes, that we have to wonder why, I live in a state that supposedly are full of Christians. Supposedly people that call themselves people that follow Christ, that follow God's word, that have the name Christian, that are in public offices, that have jobs in schools. And, you wonder why but how many of them are really standing up for their conviction? Not many at all. And we broke this story before and asked the question, why? Well, you have to understand that this story here shows us proof that God will honor those that stand up for him. And even if you're alone, even if you're the only one, even if nobody else will stand up, if nobody else will rise their voice. Remember, the watchman has a lonely job. The watchman will tell the truth. The watchman will blow the trumpet. The watchman will tell him, hey, danger's coming. But it's the people that say, remember we just read that verse in Jeremiah where they said, we won't want to hear. We don't want to hear that. You know, Jeremiah was a prophet to the nation, and they didn't crucify, but they persecuted him because they didn't want to hear what God had to say. And that's what's happening in the world today. And we are going to be singled out. We are going to be alone. But are we going to stand up for our conviction? Are we going to continue to listen to the lies of the 6-foot rule and put on our masks? Are we going to comply to all of that? Because here's a story of one person that didn't, and God was faithful again to look out for that person. And I said, why weren't there more? Why was there only one? And still today, in the midst of all of this evil that being pushed upon people against the convictions of their own belief in Jesus Christ, they're going along with it, capitulating to it, and God is showing us that he will honor those that honor him and his word. And this story right here, SoCal district to pay $360,000 to teacher who was fired after refusing to follow transgender policies. And remember, we said good for her. We said good for her when this came out. A Riverside County school district has agreed to pay $360,000 to settle a lawsuit from a former teacher who was fired last year after refusing to adhere to policies regarding transgender or gender nonconforming students, citing her Christian beliefs. Where were all the other ones? Why only this one, right? And it says Jessica Tapia, who taught physical education at Yoruba Valley High School, claimed in her wrongful termination lawsuit that her free speech and religious rights had been violated. She had refused, hypothetically, in statements to district personnel, to use students' personal preferred pronouns. The Bible says, "Thou shalt not tell a lie." If you call yourself a Christian and you're allowing yourself, because you say, "Well, we got to love our neighbors," to use their preferred pronoun, which is against what God created them to be, you're lying and you're deceiving and you're adding to their deception. You're not to go along with that. And this is only one teacher out of one of the largest school districts in the country. Is she the only Christian there? It really goes to show you the apostasy that we're living in. It says to use students' preferred pronouns, to allow them to use the locker room matching their gender identity, or to withhold information from parents about their child's gender identity, according to the federal lawsuit. So she stood up to her convictions and told her bosses that, hey, I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to lie to parents. And I'm not going to, fall into this mental, deluded, perverted deception that these children think that they're another gender. And we're not going to let them use the locker rooms or bathrooms to their preferred sex. They have to use the ones that they were born with. And that's because I'm a Christian, and we believe there's only two genders, and that we are not to lie. We are to follow the convictions that our religion tells us to. And we have a right to do that according to the First Amendment. And this judge rewarded her $360,000 because she is right. And I can't believe that this world has turned its back on so many people that call themselves Christians, have, kept their mouths shut, fallen into pietism, decided that they're just going to go along with it to love thy neighbor. And God is showing us from this story that he is going to respect and honor those that hold up to his word and the Constitution that he allowed us to have the freedoms to live by our convictions. And so will you stand alone? Will you be a watchman? Will you be one to speak the truth? Will you blow the trumpet? I mean, I'm asking you that because our time is short. The wrath of God is coming upon a world that has rejected his son and decided to do all of these things that culture has decided to do. But as Christians, we are not going to follow that lead, even if it means time in jail. Even if it means losing our job and having to go through a court case to recover what's rightfully ours. These things are coming upon Christians, and God can see the ones that are truly his and the ones that are truly not. And it's really shocking to see just the tidal wave of apostasy that we're seeing revealed in these last days. And so That's what we see today. And so I just want to leave you with 1 Thessalonians, be reminded about us and what our response to all this should be. It says, but concerning the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord, the 7-year tribulation that comes after the rapture, so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. You are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet the hope of salvation. For God did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain salvation or deliverance from wrath through our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. And so that's really the perspective that we need to have, that he has delivered us from the coming wrath, and he's coming to deliver us from it soon in the rapture of the church. So we're here, and that's the purpose of these things, to know the lateness of the hour, to know that the clock is getting ready to strike midnight, that the Lord's return is at any moment, to pour out his wrath upon a world that has said no to the gospel and to his son, Jesus Christ. But I pray that if you're watching this today and you are still playing around and you're walking the fence on this thing that we call Christianity, and you have not put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, that you need to do so today. You need to understand that he died on a cross for your sins, that he rose again from the dead, and that God has promised that if you put your faith and trust in that finished work that he did for you and that gospel message, that you will be saved. The Bible is very clear when it says all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. What's he mean by calling the name? Calling on him for salvation, calling on him for deliverance, calling on him knowing that wrath is coming and that you can escape the wrath to come through your faith in Jesus Christ. And so we need to do that. And for the rest of us, be willing to stand alone. Be willing to stand up for what's right and what your convictions are. Be willing to say no to the madness. And be willing to understand that even if there's consequences, there's reward and blessings from the Lord. And that's proved by this one teacher who was brave enough to stand up and say what's right. And God honored that by giving her this big settlement. And we have to understand that even if it means losing your job, that even if it means if it's moving our freedom, that God has promised us that he will take care of us, that we need to trust in him and not man, because the trust in man brings a snare. And so we need to put our faith and trust in Christ even today and stand alone and be a watchman on the wall and warning people of the wrath to come. So thank you for watching this update, and we'll catch you again next week. And so Lord bless you. Thank you for tuning in, and Maranatha. If you have been blessed by this podcast, please subscribe and share to help get the word out in these last days. If you'd like more information or to contact us, please go to calvarysolidground.com. God bless you, and see you next time on Apologetics and Prophecy.